Hello, everybody. Welcome to our global seminar pre-departure session. In a few weeks or months, depending on how long it is until your departure, you'll be getting on a plane with another group of students from NDSU and a professor and heading off to your destination. So we just want to have a few things that we want to cover today to kind of help you as you're thinking about preparing to go, help you think about what questions you may want to talk to your leader about, and just be ready for your departure. My name is Tanya Kramer. I'm the Assistant Director of Study Abroad. I co-lead one of the global seminar programs and have had lots of students immensely enjoy their experiences over the years that I've been here. So you're off on an amazing adventure and you will learn a lot.
And then hello, everyone. My name is Tasha Carey Waselk. I am the Study Abroad Coordinator here at NDSU. I've both co-led global seminar programs as well as participated on them when I was an NDSU student as well. So I hope you enjoy your time abroad, and let's get started with our session.
So for academics, if you want to use this course for something other than just a general elective, you can go through the appeal general education requirements process to have it count towards your gen eds. It does not automatically count, so that is something that if you would like to have it count towards the requirement for general education, you can do the appeal process. We have some good instructions on our website on what are some good kind of like guidelines for having a successful appeal. Oftentimes students will try to have it appealed for the cultural diversity or global perspectives requirements. But if, for example, it's a history course, you could potentially have it count towards one of the other gen eds or whatever course you're taking that might fulfill that requirement. So to do the actual appeal process, you can go to the One Stop website under forms, and it's called the Appeal General Education Requirement Form. And again, under our academics section on the Study Abroad site, there are tips for doing the appeal process.
So as far as finances, you will see the program cost for your program billed to your campus connection like normal. And so essentially you can just pay it like normal. It'll follow the same payment deadlines as the rest of like financial aid. So that's where you'll see your program costs now. The payment again is due during the regular payment schedule. And you can pay your student account as you normally would through Campus Connection. And then to ensure that you've completed all the paperwork and procedures for financial aid, you can either meet with us or your financial aid will be adjusted to include the program costs. So you can take up to that amount as well.
So as far as preparing to go abroad, one of the things is to discuss with your parents. Now, obviously you can talk to them about as much or as little as you want about the program because you are an adult. But one of the things, if parents contact us, we're unsure how much you want your parent to know. So we always recommend or reach out to the student then to say, you know, your parent reached out and asked a question, we will tell you the answer. So that way you know the answer as well. And we kind of do that just because we've had students go abroad who don't want their parents knowing. And so we do not want to breach that confidentiality at all. So just make sure you're talking to your parents about what you're going to be doing when you're going abroad. What are you learning? What do you hope to get out of it? Your travel itinerary, financial costs. Let them know too, you're going to be busy when you're on site. You may or may not have time on various days to contact them, not to mention the time difference. So kind of have them keep that in mind, and that they are not going to be worried if you don't contact them every single day about how your experience is going. Sometimes Wi-Fi is a lot harder to come by, and depending on which country you're going to. And so you just may not have regular communication as you would here in the United States. So if your parents do have questions, it's best if they contact you, and then you in turn contact your study abroad advisor to find out the answer and then relay that information to them.
As far as entry requirements, you will need a valid passport, and it does need to be valid up to 6 months after you return. So be sure to make sure that your passport is up to date. If not, then you will need to get that processed as soon as possible. The name on your passport does need to match the name that is on your flight. And you can talk to your program leader about this as well, about what the flight names are going to be and things like that. You will need to know or make sure that you do know if you need a visa or anything prior to arrival. Each country is different, so you'll want to make sure that you check those requirements on the travel.gov website. Another good thing too is for your parents to have a passport if there is like an emergency, or maybe they want to travel with you after. Having them have a passport is also handy as well. And then one of the other things to just note is you'll want to make sure that you know what the COVID requirements are for your country. It's going to be your responsibility to know what those are, whether there's specific requirements for having the vaccine, if you need your vaccine card with you, anything like that. It's your responsibility to know those things prior to departure, so you wouldn't be turned away when you arrive in country. So that's very, very important to know as well.
And oftentimes your leader will go over this information. It's just for, if for some reason your passport was incorrect and it didn't quite match your flight, or if you didn't have the app downloaded that's required for the country you're going to prove that you have your vaccination for COVID or whatever it is. Maybe it's that your visa, you didn't follow through and get the visa, even though you knew what was the thing you needed to do. If you are turned away at the border, that is something that is your responsibility to make sure that you have done and that you follow those requirements. So it's not going to be, up to the leader to make sure you have that. We can ask those questions, but really it has to be you who make sure you're following all of those requirements. So don't lose your passport. That's the first thing to do. Don't do that. But if you do lose your passport, it's a good idea to have a copy of your passport in a safe place. Usually it might be a picture that you've taken of the first full page, with your photo and your information on it. You could have a copy stored in your phone. Maybe it's in a secure like Google Drive or something like that. Keep a secure copy of it where you can access anywhere in the world. Because then if you have to go to the embassy to have it replaced, you have proof of your identity and can submit that. It makes the embassy process go a lot faster. So if you do suspect that you've lost your passport, make sure you do something about it immediately. Don't move on to the next country hoping that it turns up. Everything needs to be found as soon as possible if you even think it's lost, because you'll want to work on getting it replaced, and usually that will take an entire day out of your itinerary to be at the U.S. Embassy and have it replaced.
So for packing, especially because you're going to be going on a global seminar, so a shorter program, take less than you think that you'll need. Watch for those baggage weight limits. Maybe you choose to just bring a carry-on instead, so you don't have to worry about checking a bag or anything like that. Making sure that you have the right adapters, and if you need an electrical converter. So the plug-in adapter is like the physical end of your cord that you're plugging into the wall, versus the electric converter actually, converts the currency of your electronics. I know a lot of like Apple products and smartphones and things like that now will automatically convert that for you, but you'll want to make sure that you know about that ahead of time so your phone will work properly. Some things that you'll want to pack in your carry-on are the things that you absolutely want to make sure that you have with you. So that would be medical supplies, any electronic versions of your documents, so your passport, your vaccine card, anything like that. And obviously make sure that you have your valuables as well. If you don't need to bring it, just don't. If you don't need your laptop or you don't need your iPad or whatever it is, just leave it home, because it's going to take up more space in your bag, but then it's also just another thing that you have to keep track of on ground. So only bring the things that you think you'll need, and then make sure that you carry those important things with you so they don't get lost.
So how to fly like a pro. You may have flown before, but potentially you're flying a lot longer than you most likely have in the past. Sometimes the flights are so long that you're going to have food and things on the flight, and potentially, since you're flying international, they may offer alcohol. So one of the things that I have always said is you want to make sure you are hydrated. Making sure when you're flying, you're drinking so much water before you even get on the plane, but then also while you're in the airports and on the plane. It sucks to go to the bathroom in those tiny little bathrooms on a plane, but being hydrated will mean that you're healthy upon arrival. A lot of students, when they arrive and they haven't been drinking enough water, they will feel sick, their stomach will be upset, they think that they caught a bug or a stomach flu on the plane, but really it's that you are dehydrated. So if you start having stomach issues when you arrive, be sure to be drinking tons and tons of water because it'll help you get over it. You could also consider bringing Pepto-Bismol along with you in your carry-on bag or whatever, so that way you have something when you arrive in case that were to occur. One of the things that greatly exacerbates dehydration is drinking alcohol on the plane. So do not, I mean, potentially you could have one, I suppose, if you are of age or whatever, but I would say avoid it completely because you do not want to ruin your first couple of days on the ground because you were so dehydrated. And a lot of people think it won't happen to them and that they're fine, but there's just something about being on a plane that sucks all of your liquid out of you and makes you feel bad. So that's kind of my 2 cents about all the students over the years that have been sick, and it's due to dehydration. And then it kind of talks about some other tips on the screen. One of the things too, it says avoid coffee. For people who drink coffee daily, you'll want to keep track of your schedule for caffeine too, because it'll be thrown off with flying, and you kind of want to time it so that way you don't have headaches as well. So that is something that people who are regular caffeine drinkers will kind of want to keep in mind.
So as far as money, these are just some tips that we've seen work over the years. As far as debit, credit cards, cash, and ATMs and stuff, do be sure that you contact your bank before you leave the country. I know for US Bank, that's who I bank with. You can do it easily within an app, so maybe you can check your apps too for your banks to see if you can add your travel plans to that. Because you just want to make sure that your cards don't get shut off while you're there. The other thing to keep in mind too is what your bank's exchange fees, or if there's any ATM fees that your bank will charge if you were to take out money there, or if you were to use your credit or debit card there. So make sure that you know those things ahead of time, because if it does, like let's say it's $5 at the ATM fee to take out money, you'd likely want to take out more money at a time to make up for that $5 fee. So just know those ahead of time so it's not like a surprise when you get there. Another thing to keep in mind is to bring multiple forms of currency. So maybe you bring a debit card and cash, or maybe you bring a credit card and a debit card. However you want to do that, just make sure that you have a couple forms of ways to pay for things. And keeping them in a separate location. So if, for example, you lose your debit card, you can still use your credit card, or you can still use the cash that you have. It's also a good idea to keep an electronic copy of the front and back of your cards. So again, you can keep this in as a photo or in a Google Drive or something. In case you do lose your card, then you have the information on how to contact your bank to report it stolen.
One quick thing too with credit cards, make sure you know, like if you're taking out cash from a credit card, there are often incredible amount of fees associated with them. So make sure you're aware of that. There have been students in the past who did not realize and used their credit card to pull cash out, and then found out the amount of fees was absolutely outrageous, and they would have just used their debit card instead. So kind of keep that in mind Make sure you know your fees before you get charged too much. So as far as cultural adjustments, you're there to learn and experience a new culture. So staying open-minded and just really taking in what you're experiencing in a positive way. You're there to learn, observe, and participate in the local culture. You don't have to like it or agree with it, but it is the way that another culture lives, and just recognizing that is the way that they do it. Remain positive as differences occur, and then make the most out of your experience. One of the things, if you focus on the negatives, or you don't like the food or something like that, it can really bring the group down. If you are somebody who would tend to complain about that or make a big deal out of it. So you have to remember too, that you're there with a group of other people. And so you want to keep it light and positive. And even if, things go wrong and you, I don't know, lose your wallet or something like that, it's going to be an experience, and looking back, you're probably going to laugh at a lot of it. But stressing out and worrying about it and bringing the group down can really change the experience for everybody involved. So kind of keep that in mind and really try to stay positive.
As far as technology, just remember that you're abroad. You're there to learn and experience the culture. And you don't want to spend all of your time on your phone or taking pictures or trying to connect with people back home. It's good to obviously do those things, but don't let that take up all of your time. I know that on programs that I've gone on before, there's been people that will spend all the time on their phone trying to upload their photos and things like that, but they're totally missing what we're doing right now. So make sure that you're trying to be present, because this is one of those once in a lifetime things. It's going to be very difficult for you to have this exact moment that you're having abroad. So make sure that you're making the most out of it.
So you will be covered by the insurance, the CISI health insurance, and you'll have the policy at some point if you do not already have access to that. That explains a lot more of this in detail. It is an international health insurance, so it covers you while you are international, not within the United States. It's a secondary insurance, so you may have primary insurance, but this is your insurance that covers you while you're abroad. There's no deductible for injury or illness, and it has emergency medical evacuation, so it's a little bit different from traditional health insurance in the way you think of it, in that it has some of these extra features to it. So if you were to be sick and in the hospital and need to be flown back to the United States, it would provide that flight, and if you had to have a nurse with you or something like that, it would cover those costs. If you were to be sick and in the hospital for more than 5 days, or it looks like you would be, it would also cover to fly a parent or someone that you designate to be with you. So then your parent would be able to join you in the hospital where you're at. That would cover them, their flight to get there, their housing and meals for up to 30 days. We had a student who happened to really break her ankle. She needed multiple surgeries. And she was in a different country from the country she was studying in during that semester. The insurance had paid to fly her parent to be with her. And then when she was ready to go back to the country that she was studying in, it also paid for her mom to assist her to her host country. And then her mom to fly back to the United States from there. So it really is to take care of you if you were abroad and help you. There's also worldwide emergency assistance, so you can call them if you need any assistance and have any questions, and medical translation services. So if you have to be in a country where, or if you happen to be in a hospital where the doctor doesn't speak English, they will have a medical translator come in for you. And also, it does cover for natural disaster and terrorist attack coverage as well. So it is beyond the typical health insurance, but this is not travel insurance. So travel insurance is something different. If you did want travel insurance, that is something that you can consider and purchase on your own. It is not offered through NDSU or any of the coverage that we work with.
So a little bit more about health. Um, if you are a traveler that has a pre-existing condition, these are some good tips to think about before you go abroad. So you can always get a letter from your physician that just outlines the medical condition that you have, if there's any prescriptions that you need to be taking, and then what their generic name is as well. This is good to have with you should you need it. Hopefully, obviously you don't need it, but it is good to have some of these things in case something were to happen. If you do have medications, make sure that you're keeping them in their original containers and not, like putting them in those weekly things. Make sure that you have them, whether it's prescription medications or even over-the-counter things. Just make sure any medications that you're bringing with you are in their original containers. And then you can also check with the foreign embassy's website to make sure that your medications are not considered an illegal narcotic to the country that you're going to. I can't remember where exactly it is, but I think in one of the Asian countries.
That's great.
Okay, Asian countries, yeah. What is it?
Adderall.
Yeah, Adderall is considered an illegal narcotic. So you'd want to just make sure before you go that your medication isn't considered one.
So it's a really good idea to have your program leader know your pertinent medical condition information. So not everything, it doesn't have to be your full history. But if you do have anything that that's kind of listed below, for example, your medications that you take, then that's a good idea in case you had to go to the hospital and there could be some drug interactions, whether or not you're diabetic. So some of these things, if you were to have to go to the hospital or something were to happen, the leader knowing this information can make sure they're reacting or assisting as best to the best of their ability. If you're allergic to anything like medications or foods, and then any other medical conditions, and then just being up to date with your health exams. One of the things too, just making sure that you meet the immunization requirements for the country you're going to. That could be COVID related. It could also be yellow fever for going to certain parts of the world or other ones as well. So just making sure that if you do have any questions about that, there's, Sanford has a travel clinic. There's the Cass Public Health that also does great with travel things as well. So you just want to make sure you get that taken care of well in time before you leave. You can also, it's a good idea to check out the Center for Disease Control website. They have information about being a traveler, especially during things going on with COVID, about masking, about vaccinations, what's required for travel, things like that. So it's worth checking out the CDC website as well.
So we do have an app through our website here called Alert Traveler. You should have all of these instructions in your application that you have access to still to teach you how to download it and how to use it and things like that. It is compatible with iOS systems as well as Android. So you can feel free to download those apps. It does use your GPS and your travel itinerary, which is in your application as well. We don't obviously monitor that or anything like that. It's for us. So if things were to happen, we have an idea of where our students are at. But other than that, it does have a lot of good information. You can learn more about the country that you're going to and, statistical things about that. It does give you safety and security alerts. So if things were to happen, we can actually send out a push notification with a check-in option where you can actually check in and let us know if you're safe. So it's very, very thorough, and it's a really great resource for students while they're traveling as well. So we'll walk through how to download it quickly here. So like I said, within your application, you would just download the app first, then you would log into your application via this link. Your applicant home should look something like this. You'll see the Alert Traveler down at the bottom here. where you would actually input your mobile number and then your email as well. And then it will generate a password for you, and then you'll have access to it, and it'll connect you, or it'll connect your application in our system to the application on your phone. And that's pretty much how you would access that. Like I said, it's this list of instructions is in your application, so you can always follow the instructions there as well. Yep.
We have what's called an emergency action plan. It has instructions on it. We'll go over in the next page about like what to do in case of an emergency. It allows you to put in information such as like the insurance phone number that's on the insurance card. It's listed here, but it's also on the insurance card that you'll receive. You can put down your program leader information if they have not pre-filled it for you. So we will be sending that to you prior to departure. It's a good idea. We're sending it electronic now because most people will just keep an electronic version of this rather than carrying a physical card around, but you can easily print out and have it in your purse. So that way you have it with you in addition to your phone. If you carry a purse, could be a wallet, could be anything. So in an emergency, of course, if you need to contact the local emergency personnel, you may do that. Depending on the country, 911 might not be the number that you call, it might be 112. So you'll definitely want to know what that is for the country that you're going to and write that on the card. Also, the second, if it's an emergency, contact the emergency personnel, right? But if it's just something where you're concerned or, it's not an emergency, contact your program leader or potentially the provider that you're with for what the next steps would be. So for example, when I was in Morocco for a semester, I left my purse in the taxi and I got out, realized that I had done that, but I wasn't sure what to do. Like I was kind of panicking. It had my passport, it had everything that you could possibly not want. Like I think I had my social security card in there. Like it was ridiculous. I should not have been carrying that all with me, but I left it in the taxi. The people that I was with were like, okay, well, we should contact our program leader person. And that's what they did. They looked up, they asked what color taxi we were in and which city we were in. They looked up the taxi company and contacted them on our behalf. And lo and behold, the next person who had gotten in the taxi saw my purse sitting there, handed it to the taxi driver. The taxi driver turned around and within 20 minutes, I had it back anyway. But that's kind of the type of example where contacting your program leader, they have a good context for how to proceed when something happens and what to do. You can always contact the insurance, obviously, especially if you're to a hospital. So that way they can prepare the hospital for you to come. Let's say you broke your arm or something like that, just to know which hospital to go to, because they can help you with that as well. And sometimes the provider will have a location that they will recommend that you go to as well. You can also contact our office. On the card, it has information for during office hours. And then we also have the NDSU police, which you can contact 24 hours a day as well. And then your family, obviously, and use your best judgment in emergency. If I had called my mom panicking in the middle, or what would have been the middle of the night for her, about losing my purse and then find out 20 minutes later, it actually was returned to me and everything was in it. Probably not worth, basically giving your parents a heart attack over something like that. And just using your best judgment and, not freaking them out a little bit too much. Be gentle with your family. Also, the American Embassy is always there to assist Americans abroad. So if you do have any issue, you can always check with the embassy. Let's say you get lost and you have no idea, you can always contact the embassy and they will help you.
These are just some different programs that you can enroll in before you go abroad. It'll give you a lot of the similar information that the Alert Traveler will do because it is tied to, I can't remember if it's the STEP program or it's tied to travel.state.gov. So a lot of the information that is going to come from these programs or these applications are going to come from that Alert Traveler app as well. but you can feel free to enroll in these anyways. The STEP program just lets the country know that
That's the State Department now.
oh, State Department, sorry, lets the country know that you are an American traveling to that location. State Department travel warnings, things like that. So you can feel free to look at these, but just know that a lot of the information is also on the Alert Traveler app.
So as far as general safety, just be sure to look after your friends and stick together. Don't leave anyone behind. Keep an eye out for each other so that you can intervene if one of your friends seems uncomfortable or in a situation that can lead to harm. Listen to your instincts as well. If something doesn't feel right, listen to that instinct and remove yourself and your friends from the situation. Your instinct is usually right, so be sure to trust it. And then also let people earn your trust. Take some time to get to know people and learn whether they're a person who should be trusted. Just because they're very friendly doesn't mean you should, follow them down a dark hallway, up some stairs, and then off into a dark room. Okay. That's definitely happened to some students. That is a real example of following somebody who was taking them to sell them more things. And about halfway through, the people got uncomfortable, like, wait, this is a bad idea. I think this is exactly what we're not supposed to do. So be sure you are trusting within reason. And then be aware of your surroundings. Awareness is a huge part of safety. A lot of times when students are hurt abroad, it is because they're tripping, falling, and just not being in general aware of their surroundings. So it just helps keep you safe, and also helps you determine if you're in a situation that's safe for you and your friends. So just kind of keep that in mind. Obviously, you can't help it if you trip, but that is, watching where you're walking and things like that will really help that. Also wearing shoes that are appropriate for the situation that you're in.
So a little bit more about safety. You might be using new forms of transportation, so just know that it's okay to get lost, but make sure that you have a way to get back. I think you can actually use Google Maps without internet now. So that's definitely something that you could use. Just kind of get acclimated a little bit with where things are. Crossing the street obviously might be a little bit different, depending on which country you're at. Maybe they drive on the other side of the road. So when you are going to be crossing the road, make sure that you're looking both ways. I know this is kind of like elementary, but honestly, it's something that you'll want to pay attention to with the traffic there. And then communication, despite the language barrier. You might be in a country where English is not the first language. So making sure that you are cognizant of that, maybe learning a few of the common phrases or common words to kind of get you out of different situations could be helpful as well before you go abroad. I know Duolingo is a pretty popular app that people are using nowadays. It's really easy to do. So you can feel free to check out those types of things too before you go abroad.
So as far as responsibility, just remember that you're bound by the NDSU Code of Conduct. So any disciplinary actions that would happen abroad will affect you, when you return. It's not like it stays in Vegas or anything like that. So keeping in mind that, if you had any kind of issues that occur related to alcohol, drugs, or any other illegal behavior, that you would then go through the normal disciplinary action here at home at NDSU. Keep in mind you are a representative of Fargo, North Dakota, Minnesota, or whatever state that you're from, the United States, and NDSU. So just be a good ambassador. We oftentimes are sending students on with the same providers or to the same locations, potentially to the same hotels even. And so having a good rapport with our students going there year after year is really important. And it makes it better for future people who are going. So just make sure you're a great representative of us. If you don't do it here, don't do it there. Be observant, responsible, respectful, and be in control. And then just have an amazing experience abroad. A lot of this is fairly general because it depends on the country that you're going to. You might have more specific questions. So if any of this generated some questions, more than likely your faculty leader would be a great resource to ask, what type of money should we be bringing abroad? What type of shoes should we be thinking about? Those types of things. In addition to any kind of safety things, do you know what the local emergency number is? Your leader would definitely know that, and or the program provider, if your program provider will do an orientation, they'll probably go over that as well once you're there. So have an amazing experience abroad.